why is revenue operations so important? I love this chart, again, from Gartner. This shows that companies that have mature revenue operations organizations are twice as likely to hit revenue goals and profit goals than their peers, than other companies. So you are giving yourself the best shot at when you mature your organization at being successful. That's pretty compelling. I hope you remember that as we think about maturing our revenue operations organizations today. All right, the Parthenon. So this is the Parthenon, not to be mixed up with the Pantheon, which is the dome in Rome. I get that a lot when I'm sharing this Parthenon idea with people. The Parthenon, does anybody know what god the Parthenon was made for? Greek mythology? No, but it's close, if you can be close. Athena. So it's the war goddess. And I love that because it's the goddess of war, handicraft, and wisdom. And it kind of relates to revenue operations. We are at battle every day trying to help our companies win. We're creating battle cards, competitive war rooms, things like that. It really kind of captures what we do in revenue operations. And then the handicraft piece of it is operational excellence. And wisdom is something we're going to talk about quite a bit today with strategy being more at the forefront of revenue operations than it has been in the past. So I kind of like that, the metaphor there. So I'm going to start talking about this. One thing you'll notice is this is kind of sales ops heavy, with sales ops being the core of the Parthenon. I came from sales operations, and so I started there. Revenue operations, I believe, uses sales operations as a bit of a linchpin. It's really at the center. You've got to get that foundational excellence, and then you can expand on marketing and services on either end. They could have their own Parthenons, and it probably could be modeled kind of similarly to this, but this is really, it's kind of the view that I've come up with through my own experience coming through sales operations, but I think it works. Across the bottom, you've got revenue operations, organizational effectiveness. It's really the bedrock and the foundation. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But if you don't have your own internal strategy and design, roles and responsibilities clear, communication plan, process documentation, KPIs, tech and training, and onboarding, if you don't have all of your pieces in a row, there's no way you're going to be successful building that Parthenon on top. So it's really critical that we do that. In the steps, I've got these 5 kind of foundational revenue operations or sales operations tenets. If you do those well, and they're core, if you do those well, you will earn a seat at the table. If you don't do those well, you'll never get up into the pillars of this Parthenon. So that's why I love this visualization. You build those sales partnerships by being competent with your data analysis and insights, your business insights, your deal support. You know what the business processes are, the sales processes, and you're able to support those. You're good at forecasting and pipeline. You can raise your hand and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. You've got weakness in your pipeline. Let's go fix this. Or your accuracy is not right. Let's go fix that. You're bringing those insights proactively. That allows you that seat at the table to talk about sales strategy, rep productivity, which this one's an interesting one, but I've seen many times where if you don't have that credibility, you're not invited into those conversations around people and how to improve the overall sales force. Those can sometimes be touchier conversations. And then operational excellence, you might think, well, that one kind of covers everything, but the reason I put it on the right-hand side up here, up above, they're transformational programs that you're driving. And you will not be allowed to change an entire sales process or roll out a new playbook if you don't have that credibility with your sales team. You'll be stuck to the admin work, the things down below the line, and you won't be able to drive those big revenue transformation programs. So hopefully this is kind of, I'm painting a picture here and why the Parthenon is important. Marketing operations and services operations, think again back to the people, processes, tech, and data. Those are the 4 similar kind of horizontal bands that go across this. And for each one of the key activities, there's an element of each of those in there. So I'm going to just pick out campaign strategy. In the old world, before revenue operations, I've seen marketing ops go off. They found a really cool campaign they're going to go after. They use their data. They talk to maybe even the CEO and a sales leader or two, and they drive these campaigns. Those are not the same campaigns that the SDR team is driving, or that the inside sales team is driving. And they're certainly not the same conversations that your customer success or your services operations are having in their quarterly business reviews with customers. In the revenue operations world, that then becomes a singular strategy that is driven through your process, data, tech, and people into every one of those organizations. So that the same conversation that's being had in marketing is now being had by the SDRs and the inside sales team and the services organization, and the KPIs are aligned. And by doing that, by aligning those strategies, you drive revenue where the company strategically wants to drive revenue, not pockets here and there of different campaigns. Another thing I would say here before we move on is I've seen it two ways. One where it's a formal structure of revenue operations, and they actually report up through the same organization. And I've seen it unstructured, where it's more of a model that has been adopted by a company. And either way, I don't have a strong opinion on which one it needs to be. But either way, you do need to have that guiding council, an executive steerco made up of the leaders of these different organizations so they can come together and build those strategies and align and push those strategies out where they need to be pushed out. Also, I think an important element of that, of the executive council is to set up the guidelines or the kind of the principles, the guiding principles for what revenue operations will be doing. For example, the old world, kind of very tactical. We want to be more strategic now. We want to have that seat at the table. We want to be more tech focused. Don't just throw people at every problem and make it unscalable. We're trying to build a scalable organization here. So creating what those guiding principles, the overarching principles of what this model is, and ensuring that when you're making strategic decisions, those are what you're using to make those decisions on. So those are two last points I wanted to make before we move to one of the ways that we use this Parthenon, which is to come up with core competencies. What I love about the model, the Parthenon model, is it calls out that partnership layer and getting the strategic seat at the table. And that is a difference. I'm going to come down here. That is a little bit different skill set than what we're used to. We're used to things like forecast and pipeline management. We want to have that person who's really, really strong at driving that forecast cadence. We want to have somebody who's really good at support and somebody who's really good at the tools and the CRM and driving change there. But once we think about it in terms of building the seat at the table, and this is now a very cross-functional organization, it is a different skill set. You need to have people who are good at relationship management, very good at communication skills, even project and program management, because we are driving cross-functional initiatives across the organization. I have analytical thinking and strategic thinking, and we'll get a little bit more into this when we talk a little bit more about AI, but having people that are creative and understand the data and can help architect that in a way that's different than what we've had in the past, I think is going to be critical. So yes, we've got the core, what you'd expect, but now we've added some higher level thinking, some different skill sets to really build out this organization. The X factor for me when I'm hiring, and I've hired a lot of people over the years, the X factor is a flexible mindset. I cannot overemphasize that piece. How many times I've had somebody on my team, usually inherited, and I try to push something out and they actively sabotage it because they don't want to change. They want to continue to do things the way that they've always done. In this new world, that is going to change. And we need people that are willing to push the boundaries, try new things, fail, learn, and move on. There's more to that on the culture piece that we'll talk about here in a minute.